Welcome back. Water weight isn't a problem. Here's what's really going on. So, if your weight goes up after one big meal and it feels like you ruined a whole week of progress, you didn't actually mess it up. Water weight is not the problem that you're having, and it's not fat either. In this video, I'm going to break down what's actually going on. See if you can relate to this. I saw it online. You can eat clean for 6.5 days in a week. However, if you have an extremely heavy meal with thousands of calories, like a birthday celebration, Christmas dinner, Thanksgiving dinner, etc., your entire week's worth of hard work is gone. It's so unfair. Several consecutive days of eating properly can yield minimal results. However, one meal of overeating past fullness can lead to instant weight gain, which lasts for several days in succession. Look like if that's something you relate to, if you feel like you're struggling or you do so much and you get so little results, and then you have like one big meal to kind of relax or a celebration and you regain it, common situation. I'm going to break that down for you so you can understand how to maintain your goals without feeling bad about your progress. My name is Reggie. I'm the founder of Fit for Freelance. I help business owners lose weight and feel their best without crash diets or guilt. I've got the Live Align scorecard linked below. It's a 3-minute quiz so you can answer some quick questions and figure out what steps for you to take next and stay on track with your health goals, including if you want to lose weight. All right. The first thing I would say is have some compassion for yourself. All right. Now, when you're trying to change your habits, it's a big process. Like there's a lot going on to lose weight, and you have to make a lot of decisions. And you go 6 days, 6.5 days, changing your health and how you eat and how you move and stuff. That can be difficult. So be compassionate with yourself because it's not always a straightforward process. And especially if you don't have good information or correct expectations, you can feel bad like doing nothing wrong. So, compassion, super key. Everything I talk about is based on compassion. All right. Second, you'll feel better if you don't feel entitled to results. There's a lot going on behind the scenes, and feeling like something is unfair or that you deserve something when it comes to your weight loss goals can really set you up for disappointment because that's an unfair expectation to have in the first place. Something I point out with my experience in public health after like 12 years doing that, health outcomes are a result of genes, environment, and habits. So not everything is direct, like one to one, like I do this and then I'll get this result. There's usually a combination of things contributing to it, especially like the consequences of several things. And that's what I talk about in this next point. 3, some things are consequences and causes of other consequences at the same time. So it's not just like I do this, then that. It's more like something happened, then I did this, and then this is the result. This is the consequence. Comes from graduate certificate in positive behavior support, where you're talking about antecedents, behaviors, and consequences and how they contribute to any decision that we make. So your food choice, you might think that you just want pizza, but you might be hungry for pizza for anything for any number of reasons, and you're deciding on pizza because you saw an ad a couple hours ago watching a basketball game, right? So there are consequences that are on their own, and then they are also causes of other things too. So what we want to do to break this down a little bit, take a closer look, is what contributes to or causes overeating beyond fullness. This person was talking about holidays, and holidays are socially normalized. It's like everyone does it on Thanksgiving. You just eat until you pass out, or like holidays, Christmas, birthday celebration, right? It's a time for celebration and excess theoretically, but you don't actually have to do that. And I made a video about that. I'll link it at the end about Thanksgiving cheat meals, where it's like okay to eat how you want, and also you don't have to want to overeat, right? And especially in this case, where overeating until you're beyond full or whatever they said in this situation, that's going to present challenges for you if you're trying to lose weight. That's incongruent, doesn't match your goals, and we want alignment. And that's what the Live Align method is all about. So when it comes to this, holiday overeating or any kind of circumstances surrounding you, you have to decide whether that's appropriate for you, whether that matches your goal for the healthy and fulfilling life of your dreams. All right. Another thing to point out here, 1 pound of body weight is about 3,500 calories. So one day of overeating usually won't cause too much body weight gain. If you do gain weight, it's going to be more likely related to water retention and sodium. That's a water weight, right? Often overeating less healthy foods is a consequence of being too restrictive with diet. So that's another thing to think of. I see this a lot, like all the time when people feel like they have to overeat a big meal or they decide to have a giant meal. It's because they have restricted something that they really enjoy. So what happens is they tell themselves that they can't have something. Then when you finally allow yourself to have it, you feel like you have to get enough until the next time, right? It's like being at a buffet and think you had to get your money's worth, right? Or if you then a common thing, I don't call them cheat meals. That frustrates me. But the idea of like, oh, I'm having a cheat meal, so I have to make it count and I had to like eat as much as I can. Or like I'll have the whole day off my diet because I already broke one of the rules, right? When you do things like that, if you're too restrictive, if you feel like you're telling yourself that you can't have something you want, when you get some of it, it's harder to moderate it. And then that can cause overeating, right? So take a look, see if that's you, if you're overeating less healthy foods because you're being too restrictive with your diet, right? Or you're crashing out on these holiday events when you can equally have a reasonable portion of those holiday foods or birthdays or any number of reasons that you're eating, right? Something I like to point out here when it comes to these diets that are too restrictive, you cut yourself out, you're cutting out all sugars or things like that. Look out for that, right? You don't even have to do that to lose weight. I like to ask the question, what does a healthy, fulfilling life of your dreams look like? Or you don't have to restrict your diet or leave out things that you love just because you're trying to lose weight. What we want to do is understand the context, and then that can help us make informed decisions so you don't have these like binge and restrict cycles that are happening. Right. So, what does a healthy, fulfilling life for your dreams look like? Base your diet on that, where you can make reasoned choices, you can get support for that, and understand your process so then you don't overdo it whenever you have the foods that are less healthy or higher fat or more sugar or anything like that. Something else to point out in this video or in this post that I saw, several consecutive days of eating properly. This is something we want to take a closer look at when it comes to the language surrounding our health choices and our food. Because think about it. Like if you feel like eating healthier counts as eating properly, then we're starting to assign some kind of morality to our food. It's like calling some foods good and some foods bad, or eating like the language behind it can be punishing and cause a lot of guilt and frustration. And we want to avoid that. All right. I made a video on this. I'll link it below. Stop calling foods treats if you want to lose weight, right? And if you want to eat properly, eating properly, when you think about it, is really like, you can sit in a chair and a cloth napkin and a fork and a knife and you are eating properly. You're not like spitting your food out, you're chewing it gently, you're swallowing it up, right? That would be proper eating. You don't want to assign properness to healthier foods, all right, or like anything like that, because then you are creating links for guilt and frustration. So think about this when you're talking about how you're eating, what it means to you, and then how that influences your decisions. Fourth thing here, water weight doesn't matter. It just doesn't. All right. When you're talking about water weight, it's really about like the osmosis of water getting absorbed into your cells because you have more sodium than you had before, right? Like that's kind of the thing. But really, the point I want to get to is scale weight only measures how heavy your body and everything in it is to carry. So anytime you're using that scale weight to mean something else or anything else as a measure of your fat loss journey, you can run into problems. Like it can be really frustrating when you're focusing on water weight instead of focusing on weight loss. Right, sneeze. All right. So the scale weight only measures that. If you think about it correctly and effectively, then you can make real choices about your food and how you eat. So if you're too focused on water weight, that's going to be distracting for your weight loss goals and long-term goals. And it can take you out of context too. And you're talking about how much food you eat, how many extra calories, and how that affects your body weight versus just your scale weight. That gets complex. So don't focus on your scale weight too much, and especially not the water weight, the additional weight you gain from eating a high sodium meal. Overall, when you come to these binge and restrict kind of conversations, I do like to recommend people take an eating disorder screen test just so you can see how you're measuring up, because there are a lot of people who believe that some things are just part of the weight loss journey, but that's also some of the symptoms of eating disorders. And if you have like an undiagnosed challenge with how you eat, then that's going to make your weight loss journey harder, and it could affect other areas of your life too. So take a screening test. The National Eating Disorders Association has them. They're free. They're easy to take, and they can point you in the right direction if you're having these kinds of challenges, because it could be more than about how you think about these few points that I mentioned here. You can also take the Live Aligned scorecard to get your health habit score and look at some of the fundamentals of how you eat and exercise and think about food, and it'll give you some next steps for you to take. So that's linked below. So let me know what you think in the comments. If you're struggling with water weight, don't worry about the water weight. Don't feel too entitled to your results. It's a complex process that people love to oversimplify. Next, you can watch Why Can't I Lose Weight? Why Your Scale Sucks. I talked about this a little bit more in depth. To think about what you really want. You don't just want to be lighter and easier to carry. I'll put that video up here. So that's today's message. As always, keep practicing. Peace.